Hey, Jason.
Hey, how's it going?
Not too bad. I want to say it's been a minute, but yeah, I just saw you last week.
It's been like 5 minutes or something.
Couple
Actually,
days,
yeah, a little bit longer. Not as long as it usually is. Good to see you again.
for sure. Where were
And
we last week? What were we doing again? Remind me.
we, yeah, we went to San Jose, California for Nvidia's GTC conference, the Super Bowl of AI conferences, as they liked
Like
to say often last week. Yeah, it was good. We
it,
go ahead.
it felt like the Super Bowl. There were a lot of people there. It was fairly busy. I feel like I saw a different side of the conference that you did. I was at the booth for 4 days, whereas I think you got to see some sessions, which is pretty interesting. But it felt a lot bigger this year than last year. And a lot of the stories I heard of were people boots on the ground trying to actually get stuff running, some experience, some dev stuff, some staging, a little bit of prod here and there. But yeah, it sounds like people are actually trying to get some work done now, which is awesome.
Yeah, my take is same stuff. It's gotten bigger. I think there's 25,000 plus people there this year.
Wow.
They've expanded, as you saw. They've opened up like the park in the middle of downtown San Jose and just blocked that all off. And that's where we would go for lunch or just to get outside. There was lines for all of the sessions. Every session, I went to 15 different sessions over the week, and I always waited in a line of 30 minutes or more. It was a lot and a lot of people. And yeah, I needed the weekend to recover. I'm not sure I fully have, but I do have a lot of notes from stuff I need to go back and check out. To your point, I think there's more people doing more now. Last
Right.
year, it seemed like a lot of looky loos and just curious people like me and just trying to understand what are people doing, what are people experimenting with. And now people are actually building some really interesting things. The sessions I went to were all like high quality, way much larger improvements than I expected from last year. There's a few
Right.
duds from last year that I went to that I was like, that was a waste. And that didn't happen this year.
Oh,
And
that's fantastic.
yeah, they were all really good. I met with some really great people, some contacts, and some friends at Nvidia that I only get to see there. So overall, yeah, it was a great week. We went and had a good time at our favorite vegan vinyl restaurant in the
Absolutely.
place, and yeah, it's just a good week of learning and soaking things up. And now I got to take my notes and try to do something interesting with it.
Just could just coalesce all the knowledge together. Now, one thing
Yeah.
I did do was go around booths looking around to see if there's anything there to be seen. There were a lot of robots. There were
Mhm.
last year as well, but there were a lot of mechanical arms to do surgeries remotely and
Yes.
stuff like that. I think my favorite was that it was at the Pebble Flow, the electric trailer thing that we saw.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe it's because I could get inside of something and look around that it was novel to me, but I thought that was pretty cool. And I
That
didn't
was
expect to see vehicles at an event like this, but there were definitely test drives as well, which I thought was interesting.
that was very cool actually. And I don't know if how this will work, but I'm gonna switch to my desktop real quick just because I have GTC
Oh,
website up. But it's yeah, there was a lot of humanoid robots, just a lot
right.
of robotics in general and autonomous vehicles. There were more different autonomous vehicles this year. And then to your point, the Pebble, which is this really neat camping trailer that has it's a smart trailer essentially. And not only is it electric and you can live off the grid and got some really cool features like that, but it's got its own drivetrain. So it'll help with the driving and cut back on the fuel efficiency that something like that would be sucking out of you. So yeah, it was a
Right.
really cool. I wish I had the money for type of toy, but
Same thing. I think it
maybe
was
one day.
175K was the one that we were looking at in US dollars as a Canadian.
Yeah,
It's quite
yeah,
hefty. It had
for
that
all
one
the bells
feature
and
though,
whistles.
the what was it called? The smart hitch or magnetic hitch or something
Magic
like that.
Toe, or
Magic toe.
maybe Magic Hitch or something along those lines. But yeah, it'll using the app, you can drive it and actually hitch onto your vehicle.
Amazing.
You can pivot it around so you can maneuver it into really tight spaces. So yeah, different type of AI, I'm sure, somewhere in that thing in the app at least. But it was fun. It was a really cool little trailer thing. But
Definitely. It feels like the application of Gen AI to some of these topics. I think it's maybe when it's in the physical realm is obvious to me. And I guess spending most of the day with chatbots or IDEs or APIs, it's nice to see some of this in the physical world. It's scary as some of the remote procedure robots and stuff like that are. I think that is the future, and these are early days, so it can only get better than where they are right now. And I did see somebody manipulating little elastic bands, for example, with these tiny little
oh yeah,
manipulators, I guess they're
surgical.
called
Hmm.
surgical manipulators. Yeah, it was very interesting to see someone just off the street with like a VR headset, just picking up a robotic arm and picking up this tiny little elastic band and flexing. I thought it was pretty cool.
Yeah, pretty impressive, and good to know that that there's advancements like that in
Right.
medicine that are beneficial from a lot of this stuff. So I'm curious if there's any you said you hung out at the booth quite a bit more and this year, and was there any themes, any interesting conversations that came up at your time at the booth that you wanted to share with us?
Yeah, obviously Datadog's got features and things like that. So as I'm going through them, some things will resonate with people a little bit more than others. The main one that we were talking about was hallucination detection. That seemed to strike a chord with a lot of people in terms of the non-deterministic way that an API or a large language model may answer. There were people asking about things like on-prem or air gap. So I think security also seemed to be a little bit of a concern, either in the way that they're deploying things or in terms of what they're adding to the models, or perhaps their clients may be using them for. There are only a few people talking about what they're doing in prod. A lot of them were a little bit hesitant in dev and staging in terms of what they had, not being confident to push that into prod just yet. So they're in their experimental phase and they're worried. I hate to use the word governance because it's not that exciting, but in terms of on the back end, so you've deployed something, it seems to be working, and then what would those failure modes be basically? So it's a fear of the unknown, maybe bit of uncertainty and doubt in terms of what that would look like once it becomes in productionized. I hate to use this term, but once it becomes a production feature, what are those things of concern? One of them seems to be being able to make them deterministic, either via caching or a database or RAG or what have you. The other is more around that security. So ensuring that there's no PII going into the system because they don't want it. Two, that if it's being fine-tuned, that there's nothing coming out of it that might be sensitive. And then thirdly, just that security itself. So there were only a couple of people talking about wallet attacks. So imagine you've got a competitor on your chatbot just typing in stuff in order to hit your backend API so you get out of quota and then you have to downgrade your service, that kind of thing. But that came up as well as a bit of a concern is that a lot of these API calls, if in the cloud, may cost money. And as a result, the question is, how do I stem or stop this flow basically of people coming in and maybe abusing my service or overusing my service if they're overzealous? And what does that look like? How can I implement a quota system or find that one user and maybe slow down the API request rate that they've got? But there were some interesting things that honestly I hadn't thought of because that one came up and I hadn't thought of the like wallet attack kind of way, but it's more about rate limiting at the end of the day. But there
Mm-hmm.
were quite a few concerns about not how do I get started, but more like we have started. What do we need to know before we go into production, basically? Which again, I thought was fantastic. I think if that's the state of maturity that we're at after 1 year, that tells me that this is growing pretty fast. And I guess it tells you and I that the rationale for having a conversation like this is important because a lot of people are still learning on a regular basis, and it's growing by leaps and bounds.
Yeah. Yep. That was my experience too. And I know every time I came back by the booth after in between sessions, there was always a huge crowd. You were often there giving demos to like usually one or two people, and then two people behind them were also kind
Right.
of looking over their shoulder, and then two people were
It's
looking over
trying
their
to
shoulder.
project a bit. Yeah.
Yeah. And I even hung out there oftentimes if I couldn't
Mhm.
get into a session, which happens because again, there's just so many people there. So I would come back
Right.
and I got into a lot of good conversations and answering questions just because there were so many people around. And we were crammed in between Crew AI and Fiddler. And then there was like
Yeah.
11 Labs. And there's a lot of like notable companies in the space right
Right.
around us, and then you'll see somebody come up to us and go one of two ways. They either know Datadog and they're like, what are you doing over here with all of these tools, and also
Right.
what do you have to do about with AI, tell me more. And then there's other people who came up to me saying that they would love to work with us whenever we're ready for a round of funding. They're
Right.
just they have no idea who we are and think we're over a small company over here with the
They
startups.
thought we were Series C or something. Yeah.
Yeah, which was it's fun.
I
You get a lot of interesting people coming to the booth.
definitely heard that. And leading up to it, I think you had actually done a bunch of work, so we didn't have to do too much today. What did it seems like you've been very busy. Do you rest? It's like working out. If you
Sometimes.
can't, it can't always be leg day. You gotta have a rest once in a while.
That's true. That's true. Lately, my hours have dipped, but I think a lot of that's because daylight saving has given us back more time, and
Right.
yeah, I'm just more productive this time of year. But yeah, I did before we went on our trip out to San Jose for the conference. I worked on a few things because we knew we were going to be gone. We wanted to try to have an episode every week. That's just a thing we're trying to stick with. And I had some free time without Ryan and didn't have time to get together a bunch, but I had been able to go and play with a few tools on my own. Some things that we've already talked about, Cursor, which was one episode
Mhm.
that we did a couple weeks ago. I've been playing around with Claude Code, which is
Right.
another really fun tool. And so I actually spent a lot of time using Claude Code And I'm going to switch over to my desktop here.
Sure. Oh, look
Using
at that. The
Claude,
site looks way
Claude,
better.
yeah. So I used Claude Code essentially to create a website for us. So if you remember previously, we had the the whole thing was on GitHub as far as what we're pointing people to.
Right.
Here inside the AI tools experiment, this is just whoops, wrong way. This is where we were going to have everything, right? So I went ahead and I'm in the way here, but I went ahead and put in a link that just takes you to where to go? Takes you to here now. And essentially what I've done is created an episode for everything that we've done so far. And I think we went over automatic 1111 a couple weeks ago with when you were showing us some stuff. And
Yep.
then really these next five are the result of me, some on the weekend, but some I did like in Friday, like last Thursday and Friday, and I was on a roll and I just kept hitting record with what I was doing. And so if you go back and look, I'll just explain briefly what these are. This first one here is you had Ryan suggested when we were doing the automatic 11 that
Hmm.
we add a feedback form
Right.
of some type for everybody to like just give us some feedback, give us some suggestions on what you'd like to hear. So that got me thinking like how can I add a feedback form, and I decided I need a website to put that feedback form on. So what this video does is will take you, and I've got it on YouTube, it's unlisted,
Hmm.
it'll take you to the video here if you click on the image, and it'll basically walk you through what I did to create this website. And a lot of it's just HTML, JavaScript, CSS, nothing really fancy going on. And my intention was to make it a GitHub page. But the problem is, in order to do down here at the very bottom is the feedback form that I added. And in order to do a feedback form, there's some things you have to consider in terms of where it's hosted. And it's not exactly, I don't know if it's completely infeasible or unfeasible, whatever the word is, to do it, but it's more difficult to set up something that submits feedback from a GitHub page.
Right.
And I ran into those problems. I expected I'd run into those problems, but I wanted to see how Claude would handle it. And so eventually it suggested a pivot that we make this site a little bit more advanced and we go ahead and deploy it onto Netlify with a proxy server that can handle our cores communication. So
Yep.
sending stuff, cross scripting stuff is basically what
Mhm.
it's trying to prevent you from doing. And so Claude Code helped me write a little serverless function that I added to my repo that has everything with the website stuff that Claude Code helped me write. And then I deployed it into Netlify after a little bit of back and forth with a few minor errors in the build and deployment process. We finally got it working, works great. And the feedback form is, as you can see, it's nothing fancy. In
All
fact,
right.
I need to add some more fields and make it a little bit more helpful. I just wanted it to be functional at this point.
Right.
But what I've got happening is you can put in your stuff here. If I can remember my email address and talk at the same time.
It's always a beauty of trying to type and talk. Eh?
Yeah. And so we're talking about Cloud Code here. And I don't know, we'll say something new. And when I hit submit here, get a little feedback thing here from Chrome, but otherwise, you don't know what happened here. What I did just for funsies, honestly, and to see if you could do it, which is why I do a lot of things, I had it sending that feedback, that form
Mhm.
data over into Datadog.
Oh,
So I can
gotcha.
actually see it in. Let me see if I can pull up Datadog here. But we can, let's see, do I
Were
log
you
into
sending this
Datadog?
like a metric, like form created
Yeah,
plus one, or
just a custom log, basically,
oh,
a
a log?
structure.
Okay, gotcha.
Yep. And
And then presumably going through, you could grok these logs or reject them or something like that.
yeah, I haven't quite got to that because we're not getting any feedback in, and I haven't just wanted to
I'll
just
start writing some feedback on those ones I haven't watched.
pump on all that stuff here. But yeah, ideally, I'll be able to go in and start to see all that stuff. And actually, here I'll switch to my screen now that I can show
Mhm.
it. So yeah, in Datadog here, I can
Gotcha.
see the like again, there's
Yeah,
not
so it
much
came
coming
through as
over.
JSON, so we can parse it out. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, add more fields in here. But then to your point, I think I could set up some monitoring or some alerting or maybe even a workflow to have something else happen, maybe to let me know that some feedback came in or
Right.
to
Sign
kick
them up
off
for
it.
a mailing list or something, something
Yeah,
dubious.
yeah, I don't know about that. But
Right.
yeah, something along those lines just to make it a little bit more interactive for me, so I don't just have to go into the dashboard and look to see if we've had
Right.
feedback. But that was all just off your idea to add a feedback form. Then I got to thinking, I think I need a website, like a proper
Right.
website, not just a GitHub page, but I need a real website. Unless this is the other thing, I could have just done a Google form,
Of
or
course.
there's
Of
a
course.
million other form deployments out there. But like that, where's the fun in that? And
Right.
I'm always looking for some ways to like do something weird with Datadog, just like abuse the platform in fun ways. Maybe abuse not the right word, but use it in ways that
Leverage.
it wasn't intended to be a form submission
Right.
tool.
Novel
So
usage. Yeah, for sure.
yeah, exactly. Novels maybe better. But yeah, so did that. And then that was that first episode that I recorded. And in the next ones, I basically went through all of the projects that I've worked on. If I go back
Hmm.
into my GitHub, a lot of these projects that I have down here, for example, the vinyl viewer one, which is just a way for me to view my vinyl record collection, as well as the Ignite Karaoke one, which is one I built for the team
Right.
and then decided to just put out there. And then this last one here, this it's pronounced a little weird, but PS
It's like
PS
how you would call a
PS.
cat.
Yeah, it's hard. Yeah, exactly. And especially if you can't see my mouth. But anyway, I think everybody who owns a cat knows what it says. So that's another project that I decided to go back and see if I could improve upon all of those to some degree in
Right.
like under an hour, 40 minutes or so. And so I went and did that. And I want to show you a few of the things
Of
uh,
course.
that that I did. So back on my desktop here, in my website, first of all, I like updated my website also the
Looks
same way.
nice.
One of those videos, thank you. One of those videos helped me do some cleanup here, including just talking to Claude saying, hey, I want to add a bunch of new links up at the top. And it just helped me get through that much faster. Let me go through the ones that I just mentioned off. So that Ignite Karaoke one, I don't know, Ryan, if you remember this tool,
I sure
uh,
do.
but this tool lets you play Ignite Karaoke with whoever your team, your friends. And forever, when I first made it, up here at the very top, this is supposed to be like a fire flame here, best you can do in CSS, but there was this huge gap up there and it bugged me and I couldn't figure out how to get rid of it. So I decided to ask Claude Code to try to help me sort that out. And like within 5 minutes, I had this thing finally like bug free in terms of the things up there that were bothering me. So that was a real quick win that I've been sitting on this for a year, I think, or something like that. It was the last time I
Right.
went in here and tried to solve for that. So anyway, it was fun to just go in and I'm stalling here to let all these images go by. But it was fun to go through and revisit this project and then put it back on my website because I feel like now it is a little bit more complete. I've got some
Right.
ideas on other things I want to do, but maybe it is something that some other teams would like to play with.
Yeah, definitely. I think this exercise was really cool. I stumbled a little bit because it's not something I'm used to, but I think it just one that the concept was new to me, but two, being able to have a website where you stand it up really easily to do it, where it's already done for you and you can modify from it if you want to. I think it's really cool for other teams to try this experiment and see how it might work for their teams. It
Yeah.
was neat.
I like to code, but I don't always want to code. Sometimes I just want
Right.
to solve a problem. Sometimes I'm doing it
Right.
I enjoy the process, but other times I just want to get to the thing that I'm building. Like I feel like I'm able to swing in and out of those two modes a lot easier than I
Gotcha.
maybe previous had. So I think that's cool. So that's the Ignite Karaoke. The vinyl viewer is another one that I liked, or I was able to figure out a
Hmm.
solution to. This one, I don't know if I've showed you this before, Ryan, but these are all the records that I have in my collection, and you can come in and click on one. I need to zoom
Ooh.
out just a little bit and listen to. I won't play it because it'll just get blocked on YouTube anyway. But a little snippet of the record, pick another one, and eventually I was going to have in what this market rates are for each one because trying to keep track of the value of everything. But anyway, fun little tool here. I use it because I can come in here and I've got a ton of Frank Zappa.
Of
And so
course.
if I type in Zappa, I can see all the ones that I have. Previously, when you type in Zappa in the search bar, it came up with everything right. It like filtered all of them correctly. But then if you clicked on one like Zoodalures,
Right.
it would show you like some other record. It would just pull up like the front art and everything from like for different, completely different artists, all that. So it wasn't
Gotcha.
matching up what was going on. And so I gave the code base to Claude Code and I explained what's happening. And within 20 minutes, we had it sorted out. And then I
Very
went in and made some other little adjustments and improvements to it. So finally got that working, which is really nice. And then the other one that I think actually is turning out really fun or really good, as they
Yep.
say. And this one, if you look, you can still see here, this was the original interface that I
Right.
had.
Which is
Okay.
fine. It
Yeah, I
looks
mean,
like something I would build.
yeah,
No, no
I
offense,
don't
man.
claim,
It's
I know
functional.
it works. It's all I
Yeah.
know. But there's room for improvement. And so
Of
that's where
course.
we're at now. And so I can come in here and I can put in
I gotta
my,
ask, so what's the keyword that you're using to make this better? Make not ugly? What is the thing that helps you get Claude Code to make this look better?
that's a good question. What I did was obviously I gave it my code base
Yeah.
and said I want to improve certain things, but I did get specific on here's the colors that I like. I like to use like the
Gotcha.
Datadog color palette.
Yep.
I said I want to use some shadowing and really just gave it some direction on like the CSS. I want to make sure that it works well on mobile.
Gotcha.
It was a pretty it was more of an iterative process with this one
Gotcha.
to go back and forth. You can see here I have anything that doesn't have any animal that doesn't have a
Like a placeholder.
image just automatically shows the Datadog one, which I think I must change to something else. But yeah, you can come in here and choose. I'm possibly in the market for adopting a new cat, and we can come in here and take a look at
These cats are
JWoww.
adorable.
And
This is a dangerous application. I end up adopting a
I
cat for sure.
originally I was trying to decide if there's some way to use AI in these images to help them find a home a little bit faster. Like all those animals, those pets don't have an image at all. They don't really have that good of a chance of finding a home until there's an
Right.
image. I put the Datadog one up, but what could we do with AI to find a pet, put something else that like draws people in to at least go look? Oh, that
Right.
animal is at the shelter that's 10 minutes from me. Just make it a little easier to get these pets adopted. And then I'm
Right.
obviously building it for myself because I'm looking for another one too. And this is exactly how I found Watermelon. If you've met my current cat, Watermelon,
Mhm.
I built this app last year around this time. And even though it was ugly, it helped me, it led me to her. And so we're going through V2 of that process again.
That's really cool.
Yeah. So anyway, that's pretty much it. If you go and check out the site here, I'll pull it up one more time. Oops, wrong one. The other few things down here is just more of this CSS one is more of
Yeah.
fixing the Ignite Karaoke. This is going through and changing and fixing things in with my website. So they're all about 30, 40 minutes. And just like a lot of the stuff we've been doing, just walks you through exactly what we see and what we're experiencing, kind of learning in public
Exactly.
and just sharing that with you. There's very few edits. I've cut out some filler words here and there just to compress the time a little bit, but I've tried to keep it pretty raw and show you exactly what's happening. And yeah, we'll keep doing it that way until we hear otherwise. So
That is awesome. I feel like
that's
I
what
got
we've
to
been
do
doing.
that. Got to do the same. Got to get off my rocker here and start doing some work.
Speaking of the next thing, I know
Yep.
you've already been on your horse, on your rock, out of your
A little bit.
rocker.
A little bit.
So, what is it you're going to maybe share with us? Like, probably not enough time today, but maybe the next week we can go
Yeah,
through
I
some
think
stuff.
so. Last time we talked a little bit about stable diffusion. So I'd like to talk about the future of what that looks like in terms of image generation, or at least image to text as well. So going the other way. Flux One or Flux One Dev is what I'd like to demo. But I think next week I'll probably talk about windsurf. I will say I went to the booth at GTC. I have also used it a little bit, but only used it in a way that it would be like imagine you know how to use an IDE. So I was using the way that you'd use cursor. Windsurf actually has a whole bunch of features that I've not touched at all. I've essentially just used that as in another IDE. I think I'd like to talk a little bit about how it works and how it might be a little bit different than Cursor. Not better or worse, just a little bit different. I'll try to wear the t-shirt that I got. I thought was pretty funny. And they also gave me those like the sleep mask kind of thing.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I've got all the swag, so it behooves me to talk about their topic. But I do feel like at this point in time, we've reached a point where there are a couple IDEs that are popular. So we've got Cursor and Windsurf. There's a few more that are becoming in vogue again. So I think IntelliJ is also trying to add similar features to theirs. And you can see VS Code as well, trying to figure out what that looks like on their end with Copilot. So I can change Copilot to look at it. What I'd like to eventually do is like circle back and look at VS Code and maybe IntelliJ, be it IDEA or what have you. But at this point in time, I think the next one I'd like to look at is Windsurf and talk about how things are maybe similar but not the same as Cursor, and then go from there.
Excellent. Yeah, I've been wanting to get my hands on windsurf, and it'll be fun to kind of get your take on it and see what you do with it. So, looking forward to that. And lots of things that you just reminded me too. Even though we've played with Google's suite of tools and
Right.
Gemini and Gemma and all that. I need to add some stuff in there because one of the sessions I went to at GTC was a former coworker of mine, and she was showing off doing some stuff in a Google notebook, Google Colab notebook with or Gemini. I'm not sure which model she might have been using, but
Right.
with the interface in there. And that gave me a ton of ideas too. So yeah, I already had too many toys to go play with, and now it's tripled since G.
Yeah, more. Yeah. I also got an email last week while we were at the conference that as part of my Google Enterprise, I think I get Notebook LM Plus as part of that subscription.
Oh,
So I'd like to kick the tires with that as well at some
yeah.
point. Because you're right, what feels like a quote unquote IDE to us may be different for something like somebody like a data scientist or somebody who's working with more models on a regular basis. Python specific kind of viewpoint might be to start with a notebook and go from there to something else.
That's right. We can open up Python notebooks, Jupyter notebooks, some kind of notebook in lots of ways, but the Google
Right.
Colab thing is its own unique thing.
Correct.
And
Yeah.
I did a webinar on it, but that was over a year ago, and so much has changed since then. So
It's changed a ton. Yeah.
just need to come back and play with it. But
Absolutely. A
you're
lot's
right. Data
changed in a year.
science, they don't. That is like this their IDE basically, and it
Right.
works great for lots of other reasons too. I can think of 100 ways to like do some interesting things in a notebook that you're just running little snippets of code that kind of
Absolutely.
stitched
It's a
together.
really good teaching tool at the very least. Yeah. I
Yeah.
find being able to show people stepping through this is how you install the Datadog
Yep.
integration. Here's the next step kind of thing. It's actually pretty handy for that.
It's very good for that. So we should revisit that too.
Definitely.
All right. For the sake of time, we should probably wrap this one up,
Let's do
and
it.
we will be back again next week with some stuff about windsurf. It sounds like maybe some other things too, depending on time. So looking forward to that.
Absolutely. Thank you so
And
much for the recap and your point of view from GTC, because we definitely had two completely different conference experiences aside from listening to records with our friend Bob. But yes, that was a
that's true.
fantastic conference.
And I will once I get time. And I mean, we're recording this on Monday, and we just got home this weekend. As soon as I get time to go through my notes, I will summarize them in some fashion and post them in the show notes of this
Very cool.
recording, just so that in case anybody's curious about those sessions that I attended, they're really good. That's all I got, and we'll see you next time.
All right, folks. Have a great week.
Bye.
Bye.